Hello and welcome back to another Rolling to Win Live. Today, I am with, well, he's been a personal mentor to me, Dave Gold. His brand is Dave Gold Evolve, founder of the Business Growth Brotherhood, and he hosts transformational mastermind experiences. I've been through several of them there, and I can say that they are transformational and great mastermind experiences. So let's bring him out. Hi, Dave. How are you today?
What's up, John? Thanks for the intro. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. So, are you coming in from Tulum today?
I am. I'm in Tulum currently.
Right on. So, I know you as a bit of a digital nomad. So you have traveled the globe and all kind of stuff, and sort of now you're hanging out in the spiritual epicenter, it seems, of Tulum. And man, where are you from? How did you start this journey?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm from up the road from you pretty much. I'm from Pennsylvania,
Okay.
suburbs of Philadelphia to be exact. And my family in DC, out on the West Coast as well, but I grew up on the East Coast and ended up going to school in Connecticut to study
Mm.
political science and human rights back in um, the early 2010s. And yeah, it's been quite a journey to get to the spiritual epicenter of the world.
Nice. So, wow, you studied political science. I didn't. I guess we're going to learn all kind of stuff. And at that point, like you're in college now. What? How did you decide to take this path that you're on here?
Oh, I didn't really. And I feel like in the States, a lot of people, they don't know what they really want to do. And
Mhm.
so the society is just kind of pointing them in a direction of either bringing on a trade, that's kind of rare these days, or going to university and getting a degree or possibly even these days jumping into entrepreneurship, but I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. And no one told me that it was a good idea to learn a trade. So the next move would be go to university and study
Mhm.
something that would put me in the position to get a job, to work my 9 to 5, to lead up to the marriage, to the
Mhm.
kids.
Mhm.
And this path just, it felt so daunting. It felt so boring. It felt so not me. And
Sure.
when my parents finally got divorced back in 2012, I almost took that as like a very difficult moment where it was really difficult to see the way they were communicating with each other and with
Mhm.
myself and my sister, but also as an escape route to go through my dark night of the soul and really leave the US and see that there was a whole world out there of experiences and communities and people that would shape the person that I am today.
Sure. Sure. Wow. So what was your original plan? Like you said, like college, house, kids. Like, what were you going to be when you grew up, so to speak?
There was no plan, and that was why it led to
Okay.
almost suicide, addiction
Mm.
to drugs,
Mhm.
and therapy and
Mhm. Wow.
SSRIs and you know anti-anxiety medication that I think creates more harm than good. I'm not a doctor, but a lot of people, a lot of men come to me for emotional support, and I definitely wouldn't tell them to go down that path anymore.
Mhm.
And the catalyst for change was I had no purpose in life, and I
Mhm.
sucked with women, and I didn't have a lot of really like solid friends, and I had no relationship with God because I pushed back against religion growing up.
Mhm.
And I don't know if anyone resonates with this, but if you do, like, let me know because from what I've seen, it's not just me.
Mhm.
Growing up in certain societies, not just in the US, it can be very disillusioning. And I felt like I didn't know myself. Still,
Sure.
to the extent that we really know ourselves is up to debate. But at that period of life, I just wanted to find someone else who I could emulate,
Mhm.
who wasn't my parents because I didn't look up to them as role models, and find someone that was a role model that I could try to be more like, so that I could shift my identity from victim to creator.
Okay. And who was the first person that you leaned on for that? Like what
Oh,
like,
yeah, that brings us down another rabbit hole, which was I went to university and I had never really been with a woman, and
mm,
I had this anxiety, like, man, I got to improve my dating skills. I'm a teenager, right? I want to
mhm,
connect with the opposite sex, and so I just went down this rabbit hole of learning about psychology, social dynamics, communication, dating, relationships, and personal
mhm,
development. What would it take for me to grow as a man to be more in alignment with my purpose and more attractive to the opposite sex? And so I was following a lot of dating and relationship advice on YouTube, reading books,
mhm,
consuming content, and I think a lot of those mentors, I'm not going to name one name,
sure.
but a lot of those guys really challenged me that it wasn't about my looks.
Mhm,
It wasn't about how much money I made. It was much more about the way in which I communicated with myself and my body language, my
mhm,
tonality, which I knew was a big problem at the time, and and whether or not I knew what I wanted,
mm, mhm,
because I was so confused not knowing what I wanted. I just played tennis as an escape and I got really good at tennis.
mhm,
And besides that, I didn't have a lot going on. I really didn't like school, and I felt like there was something broken in the school system where I wasn't able to really step into my potential and my identity. And it was very alarming thinking that, wait, is there another way? Is there a
mhm,
way out? And
sure.
finally, I found it when I left the States.
Hmm. Okay. So you're at this point where you're really in. So you say university. I mean, okay. You go to university. You had never had a relationship and stuff. Dating or getting a woman to go on a date with you is kind of how you make them feel, right? That's what I learned pretty early on. We didn't have the internet when I was coming up. Just kind of thinking. So you got to reading all these books on communication and stuff, and then you
Yeah.
say, "I'm going to take off and go out of the country." But so where did you take off to? Where was your leap off point?
So first, usually in the university in the US,
Hmm.
the students study abroad in their junior year, in their
Oh,
third
I see.
year.
Hmm.
And I
Had
actually
you made it
studied
that far?
abroad. I know I
Hmm.
didn't yet make it that far. I went abroad in my second year, in my sophomore year,
Okay.
to Greece, to
Mm.
Thessaloniki, which is
Hmm.
the second city in Greece. It's a port city, a university city. And I was
Okay.
studying in Aristotle University and the University of Macedonia.
Hmm.
And I ended up getting really frustrated by my roommates at the time that they were making fun of me. I have like really intense eyes.
Hmm.
And I went for a walk and I run into this girl and I said, "Where's the payphone? I want to call my parents. I want to go home. I'm not feeling welcome here."
Hmm.
And she sat me down and she said, "I'm in school to be a psychologist and let's talk." And she ended up finding out where I lived and left a note. And we ended up getting into my first relationship. So that was really beautiful. But then
Hmm.
when I came back to the States, my mom, who had been going through her own disease and illness for many
Hmm.
years since I was a child, um, was, in a dark period, and it was not easy for me to be back in the States and going back to university. Like I thought, all right, if I move off campus, I'm going to find that independence, but I
Hmm.
wasn't able to tap into discipline and
Hmm.
stability. I was very out of alignment. And eventually I dropped out of school, felt very paralyzed
Hmm.
by the whole process, and got around the wrong friends and went down a really dark path.
Hmm.
And I had this get out of jail card, pretty much, this lifeline, which was since I grew up with Jewish parents, I had an opportunity to go to Israel for 10
Hmm.
days
Hmm.
on a trip called Birthright. And I told people, like, if I go, I'm not coming back. And they all look at me and they go, "What do you mean you're not coming back?" I'm like, "I'm staying there and I'm going to
Hmm.
make it." And I went and my dad's friends were living there. So I met up with them and they said, "You're not going to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
This is not your home. You don't want to be in the army. You were just studying human rights. Like, why
Mm-hmm.
would you want to take this on?" And I said, "I can't go back. Like, I can't go back to what was there. I just had my car got broken into, my computer got stolen. I felt hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
And Israel gave me hope. And it went from picking weeds in garlic fields to living in a permaculture community, which is all about sustainable agriculture,
Mm-hmm.
to finally embracing my religion and doing the Jewish rite of passage of bar mitzvah at 21, when
Oh
usually
wow.
it's meant at 13,
13. Yeah, yeah.
and
I went
traveling
to a bar
around.
mitzvah before you did.
No way. And
Yeah.
traveling around the country, the north, the mountains, picking organic mangoes, the
Wow.
south, the desert, living in socialist and anarchist communities where they
Mm.
work if they want or they don't, or they wake up every morning at 6 a.m., they meet in the dining room, they go to the schedule, they work in a different place every day, everything is organic, it's all holistic. They're
Mm-hmm.
sitting down, they're talking about philosophical conversations like, can I not? It's a very big question. Can I not? You can take that in any which way or direction you'd like. And it really pushed me, it really challenged me to see life differently. And there had been this perception I had of Israel studying human rights. It was like this dark or bad place. And
Mm-hmm.
I just found community, I found connection, I found Jews and Arabs and Christians living together, and I found all this commonality. And there was a war during that time, and but not when I went into the army and I became a citizen. So it's a mandatory service, and I got drafted in for 2 years. And it was like the most empowering experience that I never wanted to do again. I jumped out of planes,
Mm-hmm.
I carried around a gun, I guarded on the borders. I saw the truth of what's actually going on in that country, which is very complicated. It's very political. And I realized that at that time that Israel was my home.
Mm-hmm.
Israel was my home. And if not for a difficult integration leaving the army and then COVID and then this past period of lots of little really negativity in the country, I
Mm-hmm.
might still be living there because I loved it. I learned the language, I learned the culture. I was living in the city of Tel Aviv, which is a beautiful city by the
Mm-hmm.
beach,
Yeah.
great parties, great women, great food, great people. Everyone's got a
Very
bike
progressive
or a
city too.
scooter, very progressive. It's startup nation, it's high tech nation. There's pretty good money there as well if you find the right job. But I also found it to be very cutthroat and
Mm-hmm.
very dog eat dog. And at a certain point, I had been going through a lot of sickness in my stomach, and I just said, this isn't feeling right. I need to move on. And I sat down with a guy at a cafe, and he said to me, you've got no job experience, you have dropped out of university twice, you don't have a degree, you're never going to be able to have a job like me and travel the world and make money for a company and have them pay for your expenses. And I said, are you sure? Are you sure of that, brother?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you're wrong. And I want to prove you wrong. And I want to prove myself right. So I booked a one-way ticket to Poland. I am a really big fan of websites like Workaway and Woofing, Willing Workers on Organic Farms. I think
Mm-hmm.
that there's guys who might be listening to this, or especially younger guys, women as well, who like they don't have purpose in life. They say they don't have money. You don't need a lot of money to
Mm-hmm.
sign up for Woofing or Workaway and go find an experience where you can volunteer, have one of the most empowering experience of your life, and be
Mm-hmm.
given a place to stay, food, and community.
Kind of
So
like
I
the
did this
Peace Corps a little bit.
very similar. So I did this in Israel, and then I also did this in Poland. And I went to a home of a family, and they were like an alternative home.
Mm-hmm.
And they said the kids are very difficult. I go, "Oh, I'm good with kids." I ended up falling on a trampoline and breaking my nose, first bone I ever broke in my body, on the little girl's head.
Oh
And
goodness.
so they kicked me out, and I realized like I gotta find something. And I had been applying for jobs on LinkedIn, And one of them reached out to me and we had an interview and they said, look, we don't need you in Poland. I said, don't worry, I'm going to Australia. They said, all right, we'll give you a chance. And
Mm.
I went to Australia and I was still doing work away at a like ballet studio, just so I had a place to stay because I was broke at the time, right?
Wow.
And I on the hours that I wasn't volunteering, I would go around the city and see if I could do business. And it
Hmm.
worked. And I set up the network for these luggage storage networks in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Japan, Mexico, and the US, doing over 400 partnerships with small and medium-sized businesses, restaurants, bars, hotels, hostels, convenience stores. And
That's
they
pretty
paid for my
big.
Airbnb and my travel and my expenses. And they gave me a base plus commission. And I was just like cloud nine,
Sure.
meeting women, making new friends, having all of these cultural experiences. Like I was afraid, how am I going to do business with Asians? I have nothing. They speak the different language. It's so different.
Hmm.
One woman in Sydney, Australia, even like cursed me off in a convenience store. I was like, what? How am I going to do this? And I ended the experience in Tokyo, Japan, creating 14 partnerships in 14 days. And they really don't speak a lot of English in Japan. So it was just a complete life shift. And
Hmm.
what I love about life is just breaking down stereotypes of what is possible for us in terms of our goals, but also in our connections.
Certainly. Certainly. Wow. I mean, I'm a little envious that you got to do all that, but I mean, I had my own adventures. I'm just saying, like, I never made it over to Israel, but I've always wanted to go. I studied some biblical Hebrew so that, yeah, I had this argument at one time that, in order to know what's really in the Bible, I need to know the language that it's written in. So I studied Hebrew on a not really a correspond an online course through the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and managed to compare Old Testament writings with
Mhm.
Old Testament writings in King James and stuff, and really developed a good sense of what Israeli culture looks like. I started studying, like, I'd even watch one of the shows I watched was called Shrugi, and it's sort of about the religious Jews in the secular world and how they get along with the secular Jews there. Very interesting show. I don't know if anybody watches it over there or not. In fact, I talked to this one young man who's in Beersheba there, and he says that he's never heard of it. So it might not be a very big show, but I was trying to hear Hebrew, so that that's the reason I watched the show. Anyhow,
Hebrew
um,
University is one of the best universities in Israel, maybe the
right.
best, the most prestigious, like the Harvard of
Okay.
Israel. And Tel Aviv University is good as well.
Hmm.
And and the Hebrew language is fascinating,
It is.
and
It is.
it's written and read right to left instead of left to
Hmm.
right. And when I went there, the only word I knew was shalom, which
Okay.
means hello, goodbye, peace,
Peace.
many
Right.
things, right?
Yeah.
And I ended up starting to study Hebrew. And then when I went into the
Hmm.
army for the first 3 months, our commanders were women, and we were in
Hmm.
a base with all foreigners, even
Hmm.
guys that were volunteers for the army from China. There are Jewish tribes in China, in India, even. Okay,
Wow.
I know some guys from there as well, and a lot of Ethiopians because there's a lost tribe
Yes, there is.
of
Yeah.
Jews from Ethiopia as well. There's been many waves that have come to Israel. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I went from only speaking English to then bringing on a new language, bringing on a new culture,
Hmm.
shifting my identity, and then realizing like, I don't need to stop here.
Hmm.
There's more. And that's
Right.
part of the reason why I'm now, living in Portugal, in Mexico, in other places, is because I just find it so fascinating, like what's actually going on in the world. And I like to travel, but even more than that, I like to live in the place and really
Hmm.
get to know the people and understand why they live the way they live. And
Right.
Israel's a really interesting place because people are living for survival. They're living for their right to have freedom, to have a home. And on both sides of the aisle, whether you are, neutral or whether you take one side,
Right.
people want belief and they want faith that there is a brighter day to come.
Hmm. Hmm. So, I kind of want to back up. You said at one point you were on a dark path. Like, what does the dark path for Dave Gold look like?
Um, wow, we're gonna get vulnerable here. Um, yeah, I was driving around a drug dealer and I was almost arrested.
Hmm.
And um, after that experience, I didn't do any of that anymore. Um, Another dark path is getting into the dating scene and, just being being too immersed in dating and
Hmm.
putting women on a pedestal or looking at sex as an objective,
Hmm.
okay, rather than a beautiful experience that
Sure.
two partners could share or
Hmm.
something that is expansive. And this was part of the like low vibration energy that I
Hmm.
needed to shed, which was a lot about like numbing the pain and filling the void and
Right.
having this deep craving and desire to be loved and to be accepted by other people for who I was rather than accepting and loving myself.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Did you ever have a dating coach or because I see a lot of kids out here nowadays. I say kids, I mean young men, 30s, whatever, who are self-proclaimed dating gurus, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah.
So did you fall in line with into that scene at some point, or
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah. Not only did I fall into it, I went from being this, shy virgin to being fearless to walk up to any beautiful woman,
Hmm.
make friends with any cool man, and lay on a busy street as people were walking by and say funny things to people and get them to open up. And other guys were like, "What the fuck? How do you do this? And
Mm,
can you coach me?"
sure.
And that was where the coaching journey started. I sat down with the guy at the square and I said to him, "What do you want? All right, now write down next to it, what do you need to do to get there? And
Mm,
let's see if your path has any semblance of alignment." And what I realized was most guys were completely clueless. What they
mm,
wanted versus what they needed to do to get there was completely out of alignment. And so I
hmm.
would take guys out and work with them on their communication, their tonality, their body language, their style, okay, the way they led, the way they thought,
Hmm.
okay, their mindset, and went from being donation based to receiving money to receiving a phone to every city I went, there was another guy that wanted to meet up with me and get my support and my advice on dating. And I started growing a little group on Facebook, and it was really just a fun kind of project. And then eventually that's turned into the group where we now have over 1,000 members in Leaders Unite, which is a community of entrepreneurs that have come together. And when the pandemic started, I was in Tokyo and finishing up this job. I went to the airport. They said to me, "You haven't been in China in the last 30 days." I go, "Nope, no China for me." And I made it back. I actually missed my layover in Istanbul and I made it back to Tel Aviv. And I saw a guy with a mask on and I thought, "Bro, you're crazy. There's no way that over there is going to make it over here." And so I went to Budapest, Hungary,
Hmm.
and I had a friend and we were going to start a dating company. And
Mm.
I said to him, "Hey, bro, the lockdown, like people are actually starting to take this seriously." He's like, "Oh, come on, we got to go out. We got to meet people. We got to film
Hmm.
it." And I'm like, "We can't do that. Like, this isn't going to work. There's about to be a lockdown." And so during that time, I was still being social. I made some beautiful connections. And when I moved back to Israel on the last flight from Hungary to Tel Aviv, um, I had met this woman and we started talking and we got into a relationship. And
Mm.
so eventually that was my exit strategy was all right, I'm going to leave Israel. I'm going to go meet up with her. She jumped off the train in Croatia. It was like something out of a movie. Okay, we hadn't kissed before, but yet we felt like we knew each other and we were so
Mhm.
connected. And we started traveling and living together in Croatia, Hungary, Romania, Serbia, and then
Mm.
eventually Portugal.
Starting your own little tribe almost, huh?
So, yeah, starting to create independence for myself in the
Okay,
first time of my life,
good.
starting to um, be the provider in a relationship
Hmm.
where it felt like the other person really valued what I was giving them. Because I had done that once before and it really backfired and I kind of fell on
Hmm.
my face in that relationship. And it took me a long way, but eventually I burned out. I fired all my top clients. I was not happy in the home I was living in Portugal, in Porto. The homes are not well insulated.
Mm.
Um, all drugs are decriminalized, so the
Right.
police don't really like, they don't really persecute the druggies on the streets, and they were in the alleyway by where we were living, and it was very dark,
Mm.
it was very uncomfortable. And so I said, you know
So they
what,
just kind of just laid out like shooting up in the streets,
dude,
like.
crazy. Yeah, yeah, like
Mm.
really out there. And I said, I can't be around this darkness anymore. I needed to heal. I need to heal my
Mm.
relationship with myself, with my parents, with money, with my
Hmm.
business. I'm overworking
Sure.
myself. And
Why
so I
do you
went
think that'd be
to,
the answer? Was like that's the answer to heal the relationship with your parents and so on.
hmm, yeah, because I knew that the the narrative that was playing out in relationships was in part due to the anxious attachment that I felt
Hmm.
from living in kind of a semi-broken family growing up.
Okay.
And and yeah, I went to Ibiza and I met up with the first guy that hired me for brand consulting. He was attracting a lot of women. He wanted to work with more men.
Hmm.
We got him the result that he wanted, so he was a super happy client. We became friends. And then I went to Ibiza and it was really crazy. He had been telling me about this ceremony that he offered to people. And I was like, what? What is this all about?
Hmm.
Okay. He's like, come on, just come try it. It'll change your life. And on his table was a book called Psychedelic Psychotherapy. And it was all about the difference between recreational psychedelics and psychedelic psychotherapy, which was being measured and tested in
With intention
labs
and
and
stuff, right?
much more intentional and much more ceremonial. And
Mm.
so he took me on this beautiful journey where I smoked this really strong DMT called Bufo alvarius,
Hmm.
and I let go of a lot of trauma. I let go of a
Hmm.
lot of a weight, and I really reprogrammed a lot of like narratives and stories and scripts in my mind about why I was getting what I was receiving in life. And I
Hmm.
put all of the pieces of the puzzle together. I shook a lot out as we were looking out over As Vedras, which is one of the most magnetic rocks in the world. And it brought me to first St. Martin, which is a beautiful island in the Caribbean,
Hmm.
and then to Northern California, where I lived with one of my top clients, Adam, who had a beautiful family and home there. And then finally to Mexico, where I had joined a brotherhood of male entrepreneurs pretty much from the US. And I didn't have that tribe of brothers from the US because the guys from high school and from college, a lot of them were doing a very different life than me and they didn't really resonate with the way on which I was living.
Sort
And
of the
so
average, like the guys you grew up with, they're doing the average, like, well, I got to go to college and check that off. And then they got to get, okay, now I got a fiance and a
yeah,
marriage and a child.
they
And
finished their university, they got
yeah,
the marriage,
yeah,
they had the kids, they
right.
had the, six-figure, seven-figure
Mhm.
salary. And I saw a lot of them were not happy and a little bit miserable, but that's a different story for a different day.
We get taught to be
And
miserable on purpose, like that. They kind of teach us, like, this is just the way it is. You got to work your 40 years and then you get to retire and enjoy the next 10. And then that's about it. That wraps it up, fellas. Lifespan 76 years old, right? So, You work till
exactly.
you're 65, 67 now, and then poof.
So this mentor, he had a meetup in Mexico City, and I had only heard bad things about Mexico. Dangerous place,
Hmm.
you're gonna get drugged, you're gonna get robbed, all right, all this stuff. And my aunt and uncle had been telling me for a few years that they moved down and they bought a home in a city very close to Mexico City called San Miguel de
Hmm.
Allende. It has
Hmm.
one of the most beautiful churches in the world in the center of the square where people go to get married. It's very Spanish, incredible architecture. So I was like, all right, fuck it, let's do it. I'm gonna go down to Mexico City. I'm gonna meet up with my mentor, go to this meetup, and then I'm gonna go to San Miguel de Allende, and I'm gonna see my aunt and uncle, and I'm just gonna, try to make it out alive and not get kidnapped. And what I
Right.
found was Mexico was so different than I expected. Mexico City reminded me of like a European city. San
Hmm.
Miguel de Allende had a lot of culture. It was very family oriented. A guy you just had on the podcast the other day, I met there, Tristan Montoya,
Hmm.
and I loved it. The food was a little bit tough on me when I first arrived. There's this thing called Montezuma's Revenge. So I had to kind of like, my body had to adjust to the
Right.
parasites and to the different
Had to get some
bacteria.
new biomes.
Exactly. Oh, that was an adventure. Um, but it was just empowering, to finally have a mentor that I met up with in real life. And, he took himself off a pedestal and he was a multimillionaire from coaching.
Hmm.
And he told me one thing that really stuck with me forever, which was invest in the person, not in the program or the product. And I invested in him because I really believed in him. And, he really inspired me and connected me with all these other beautiful men. And when we had an opportunity to go to the western part of Mexico and build a home for charity using this project called Baja Builds,
Hmm.
and you raise like 15K and you build a home for a family that lives in a shack pretty much.
Hmm.
And I took it. I took it when I had to leave Mexico after like, as an American, you can come down to Mexico for like 6 months,
6 months.
visa
Yeah.
free.
Hmm.
But then you have to kind of go, or else you might get a fine, or it depends on where you are. But
Border run.
yeah, something like that. It's a little bit complicated, but
Right.
gray areas in Mexico, bureaucracy. You can
Gotcha.
pay for anything, right? And it's a little bit different than the States. And so I went to Colombia. I had a great experience there. I then hosted my first immersion
Hmm.
up in the city of Medellin and in the park called Parque Elena, Santa Elena. Beautiful
Hmm.
park. I lived up on this mountain when I first arrived there. Super special. People were so nice. Food was so great. They have this plate. It's called the bandeja paisa. You choose your meat. It's either chicken, pork, or beef, and it's got the
Hmm.
platano and the rice and the beans. It's so good. And built this home for charity. And during this time, I was building up this community called the Align Leader Mastermind, and it went really well for a while. And
Hmm.
then at a certain point, it was just like I felt like I was hitting a wall. I felt like what was working before wasn't working anymore. And I've experienced this at multiple periods in
Yeah,
my
it happens
entrepreneurial
from time to
journey.
time. Sure.
Yeah, where it's like you're doing something really well, or maybe you're in the gym, right? That
Hmm.
exercise that got your arms big
You
is not going to
plateau.
be the exercise, yes, that gets you to the next level. And I plateaued,
Hmm.
and I ended up meeting this incredible guy in Guadalajara, Mexico. It's the second biggest city, beautiful city, a little bit dangerous, but really beautiful. And he became a client of mine, but I was already kind of checked out. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back, do that job that I used to have. And I went Guadalajara, Miami, New Orleans, San Diego, Los Angeles. And then I'd been talking with Adam from Northern California about hosting this retreat, the
Hmm.
Awakened Warrior retreat. And so we put it together. We did it. We had guys from the US fly in, and we had this really powerful ceremony with psilocybin. And after that, I was like, I can't keep working on this company. I need to create a new community. And that was
Hmm.
where I came down to Tulum. I built Business Growth Brotherhood, and that's really what I've been working on for the last, year and a half.
Nice. Nice. So what is Business Growth Brotherhood exactly?
Well, Business Growth Brotherhood is a collective.
Hmm.
Um, it's conscious male entrepreneurs coming together to work on business mastery
Hmm.
and simultaneously implement inner work, creating more alignment, more self-love, deeper awareness and acceptance for their
Hmm.
lives, creating better relationships with with themselves, with their family, with others, and living from a place of purpose,
Right.
while also improving sales processes,
Hmm.
content creation, and moving from a place of competition to collaboration,
Hmm.
and taking online interactions and bringing them into real life by meetups, by flying around and meeting each other.
Hmm.
And this has been something that has been the backbone of, my life over the last 16 months, 18 months. And yeah, then when I kind of had taken a break from it for a while,
Hmm.
you showed up in my life and you were like, you know what? I want to be a part of it. And
Sure.
that kind
Yep.
of
Yeah, I'm in
that was the
it.
domino effect over the last 4 months of the
and,
brotherhood
and and I can say
really
it's
expanding.
a super powerful network to be in. You have a lot of guys who have got like tons and tons of knowledge. Really, you couldn't. You'd have if you bought everybody's program individually, you'd spend $100,000 or more, easy, easy. I mean, I'm just thinking about just the people that I interact with. Now, you were talking about this thing not being aligned, and you said to yourself, why am I getting what I'm getting? And I think that there's a lot of people out there who maybe they're not asking the right question. They haven't asked that question right there. So how do you find yourself out of alignment and go, why am I getting what I'm getting? Like, and then how do you
Yeah,
bring that back into alignment?
yeah. I mean, with the world we live in, we can always want more,
Hmm.
bigger muscles, fancier car, bigger home, and more money, more validation, more likes, more whatever. You always want more, especially in
Right.
American society. Let's go extra large, right? Let's go bigger, go home, hustle, grind, make it happen. And I really love that. I love ambition. It's one of the values that I really align with. However, when I was growing up, there was a lot of pressure on me to get results and to be a certain way. And
Mm.
it just felt like at a certain point, I just want to like take things at my pace and work more from a place of my mission, my vision, and my values are what lead my actions. That's
Hmm.
what creates integrity in my life. Am I working on creating impact in other people's lives? That is very esoteric, I've realized as well.
Hmm.
However, people say you can't change the world, but you can change yourself. And I
Right.
think if you can help other people to change themselves, which is very possible these days, to change the way they communicate, the way they wake up in the morning, the communities that they're in, how they treat their parents, how they treat others, how they interact with social media, by moving from a consumer to to a creator, that we actually can create cataclysmic shifts in communities by building these micro communities
Hmm.
that other people are like, oh, it's a code, oh, it's a this, oh, I don't know about that, that coach, is he qualified? But it's like, fuck them. Like a lot of people are just, on their hamster wheel, living in the matrix, like listening to what everyone else thinks, or scared to really speak their truth. So I've started traveling around the world, and as you joked about before, living in more places where like community is
Hmm.
highly valued. And we had a guy reach out the other day about the immersion, and he's living over in Mexico City, and I've lived there as well. And it's like it's much harder to find that community of guys who are entrepreneurs, who are digital nomads, who are, really working on themselves spiritually.
Hmm.
Um, if you're in some big city and you don't know where to look and you don't know about the dance scene or the cacao ceremony or whatnot, you come down to a place like Tulum, or you go to an island like Koh Phangan in Thailand or Ericeira in Portugal or even Medellin, Colombia, which is also a city.
Hmm.
You'll find these pockets of really beautiful people who want to work on healing themselves. They want to create more wealth. in an abundant consciousness way. They want to um, work on the way they communicate. Sometimes it's even nonviolent communication, which can be very difficult to
Mhm.
approach conflict in a nonviolent way and
Mhm.
not feel
Mhm.
attacked and be able to listen and hear and
What does that
reflect.
mean exactly? Non-violent way? Could you sort of
Oh,
like act out
I,
like can you kind of act out a little brief scenario in that? Uh,
yeah, I don't know if I can because I'm not an expert on the subject and
okay,
it's very
fair enough.
difficult for me. However, for example, is if you did something to me, John, that
Mhm.
I didn't like, instead of saying, John, you're such a jerk. You shouldn't
Right.
talk to other people like that.
Mhm.
You might say something like, so I feel that I feel that when you share X with me, it's bringing up a certain emotion that's causing me to close up, et cetera, right?
Mhm.
And you're talking about your feelings and
Mhm.
your experiences rather than like attacking the other person. Obviously, I don't know if that was the best example because I only have a little experience
No, it
with
makes sense.
nonviolent communication. But instead of like putting all the blame on the other person, it's
Mhm.
about really taking ownership of your own feelings and your own emotions rather than projecting to other people
Mhm.
where most interactions and relationships that don't work out, both parties played a role in it not working out, right? It wasn't
Sure.
just one person.
Right, right. It's kind of like the guy who's got 14 crazy exes. It's like the crazy exes might not be the problem, man.
Exactly, exactly.
Right.
Or if all your clients keep dropping off and
Mhm.
they keep saying that it's you, or if you keep hiring team members and they don't work out, is it really the team members?
Right.
Okay. And this is where it brings me back to that point of you'll see patterns in your life.
Mhm.
And if you take the time to get off your phone, to stop watching TV and movies, to stop buying into fear and scarcity paradigms around, this economic crash and this political election, and it's all fear-based, right?
Mhm.
And you can just focus on yourself, okay? What do I like about myself? When I look in the mirror, am I able to smile? Am I able to tell myself I love myself? Okay. Am I
Sure.
able to tell another person that I love them without wanting or needing anything in return? Okay. I think that self-love is like the pinnacle of consciousness, and yet it's very misunderstood. And
Mhm.
people just go, yeah, like, oh, I love myself. Yeah, but like, do they? Because what
Right.
I see is that a lot of people out there, men and women alike, they there's a part of themselves that they don't fully accept
Mhm.
or that they don't even want to become aware of. And so this was the shift where I had had a friend from the dating niche introduce me to this mentor. And when I was in Singapore, I paid him for a session. And we
Mhm.
talked about purpose and we talked about habits of self love. But I didn't really know what he was talking about at the time. I thought it was cute, but it also didn't like fully integrate into my life until I paid him over $6,000 to really work on humbling myself,
Mhm.
coming from more of a place of service rather than um, feeling like, I need to be valued or this other person is taking advantage of me or whatever that story I was telling myself, right? If I would just come from a place of service, how would people receive me? And
Mhm.
it was triggering. I definitely had some fallouts and some ups and downs. However, it got me to a place where I started to attract the people that I never thought I would be able to attract in my life because, I want to be around others who are loving, who are
Mhm.
family oriented, who are ambitious, who are committed, who are impact driven. And those type of people, right? They don't just give away their time for free.
Sure.
They don't
Yeah.
just hang out with anyone. If your energy's off, they're either going to charge you money to hang out with them or to learn
Mhm.
from them, or they're going to be like, get the fuck out of here.
Right.
Right. So if I wanted to attract a higher quality woman in my life, or if I wanted to attract a higher quality team member, I had to, or a client, I had to work on myself. And just a
Hmm.
few months ago, right before I met you, I went back to hiring that team member, or I'm sorry, that coach yet again, and working with him. His name is Thomas. He's from Colorado, and working with him on, you know, where is it that I have this disconnect between myself and my work, my love of life and my work, and being open to financial abundance.
Sure.
And he helped me to really tap in again to devotion. So there's a type of yoga called Bhakti
Hmm.
yoga. It's all about devotion. And I think that if we really want our businesses to work out in the long run sustainably, vice versa, because I think that dating and business are one and the same. If we really want our relationships to work out sustainably in the long run,
Hmm.
you need a certain level of devotion where you need to be devoted to that relationship or to that business through the highs and the lows. Because there's going to be dark moments, there's going to be
Sure.
rejection, there's going to be firings, there's going to be fallouts, there's going to be life happens. That's the one thing that
Mhm.
I've really learned from being a coach is that people can have all the expectations in the world, but when the car breaks down and the grandmother passes away and the disease comes in, then everything that was talked about on the first meeting goes out the window. And we have to meet the person and the experience where they're at. And so being devoted to my purpose is what has gotten me through the highs and the lows to this
Mhm.
place where I feel, lit up every day when I jump on Zoom or when I meet someone in real life.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. It's funny the people who say they know themselves, and then from an outsider perspective, you can break it down. I find this especially in my children, because when I was their age, I knew it all, right? And so very similarly, they they know it all too. Um, yeah, I've got one that jumped out of one relationship and is looking at trying to get into another relationship right off. Like it's 3 weeks after the split from a boyfriend of like a few years.
And
I'm
that's the
like,
other thing is if you have that anxious attachment style
sure.
and you're just jumping from one relationship to the next, you're
Mhm.
not actually going inside of yourself and seeing what
Mm-mm.
role did I play in having that last relationship not work out. And if you're not careful, you usually just jump from toxic relationship,
Right.
bringing in trauma, and I decided I didn't want to do that. So I've been, a little bit more careful to jump into that next
Sure.
powerful partnership over the last few years because now I'm practicing more often abstinence. I'm
Mhm.
practicing, harmonizing the duality between my masculine and my feminine, the yin and the yang,
Mhm.
the non-dual versus the dual, and the dark night, the darkness
Mhm.
versus the light, the lover, right? The warrior and the lover. And it's been really interesting, especially last week, to step into a relationship circle and
Mhm.
realize that I thought I knew what I wanted, and actually I don't. And that's beautiful because the more we admit to ourselves that we don't know, the closer we get to
Mhm.
actually finding a solution and having that clarity in our lives.
What's a relationship circle exactly? That I'm
So
unfamiliar with that.
it's like it's like a workshop where people talk about relationships
Okay.
and they
Okay.
talk about their relationship with the opposite sex.
Mhm.
And so this one is it's bisexual, right? It's both men and women.
Mhm.
And so
Co-ed.
it co-ed, sorry, co-ed. Yeah, co-ed. So my friend Ezria, he um he leads this incredible workshop every Thursday called Harmonizing Duality, twice a month. It's on
Mhm.
Zoom. And it was just him, he's 44, he's 43, me, I'm 33, and a 23-year-old from South Africa.
Hmm.
And she kept reflecting to me like, David, you don't know what you want. You keep contradicting yourself. And I was just about to step into this beautiful ceremony that night, and it hit me like, I don't need to like challenge her. I need to embrace her.
Mhm.
She's giving me a gift of helping me to get closer to the man that I'm becoming. And I think that if you want to attract something in life, it's not about doing more. It's just about the person that you become and the way you see yourself when you look in the mirror and when you go to bed at night and how you communicate with yourself. That's the difference between the coach that's broke and the coach that charges $400,000 a year, like Steve Hardison. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about how good looking they are or how much they're doing, but it's about how they feel about themselves, the person that they've become.
Okay. I can see that. I can see that. Sure. Sure. Pardon me. You ever have somebody say they know who they are, and you can clearly look at them and tell? No, you don't.
Not only that, I have guys tell me, yeah, I say to them, like, do you think you're good at sales? Like, yeah, I'm
Mm,
good at sales. And they're not making any sales. Do you think
right.
you have a good relationship with money? Well, it's gotten a lot better, but you're making less than $3,000 a month. And
Hmm.
you're telling me you have a good relationship with money? Okay. What about you have a good relationship with the opposite sex? Well, I date a lot, I sleep around, I get in these relationships, but do you ever have something that lasts? That lasts for 2, 5, 10 years? It's empowering, right? Most people are living in denial. They're
Hmm.
living in denial. And they say ignorance is bliss, right? There's a beauty in not being conscious as well. And there's a danger of stepping into that field of consciousness,
Hmm.
that spiritual way of interacting with the world. Because once you realize you're the creator of your own reality and you could take on all of that ownership and responsibility for everything that you've created for yourself in your life, it's fucking scary. It's like, oh my God, I did that? That wasn't my parents. That
Right.
wasn't the school instructor. That was me, right? And they'll push back hard. Oh no, but I was abused as a child or I was
Hmm.
raped and I don't want to discredit what people have
Sure.
gone through. I've gone through those same things. I have. But they either make you or they break you. They either shape
Right.
you into the person that doesn't want to repeat the same thing over and over again, or you let that be a crutch holding you back from getting to where you want to go. And I'm in the coaching space, right? So a lot of guys, they say, oh, I've hired a coach before, I'm working with another coach, and I'm not getting the result that I wanted, so I'm not going to try again. And life is not about hitting gold on the first hole that you dig.
Right.
Life is about digging holes over and over again and planting seeds and watering them until you've got this beautiful orchard in front of
Well said. Very well said. So, Dave, coming to the top of the hour here, um, how do we get involved in your network?
you. Well, obviously, like from my story and from the share, it's
Hmm.
not for everyone. And I've shared a lot here today, and I've been very vulnerable and honest with you.
Hmm.
So if you are open to having a conversation with myself, like it's going to be raw, it's going to be real. That's something I loved about you from the first time we met. You were like, I'm not holding anything back. Everything can be out on the table. I'm going to be real with you, Dave. And if you love me, great. If you hate me, great. Okay. I'm not going to be offended by that. And so I'm just like, I love speaking my truth. I love
Hmm.
connecting with other guys who have similar values, who have a big mission to change lives, to create community, to share their message with the world, and to not only, have calls on WhatsApp or on Zoom, but to actually meet up in real life. And so if you feel like that is of resonance to you,
Hmm.
then reach out. My Instagram is Dave Gold Evolve. Go and follow my YouTube, support myself, and just be ready.
I've got your Calendly in the description for
Very
this.
nice of you.
So,
And my Calendly says win-win. Be ready to look to create a win-win. Because I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how big your muscles are. I don't care, where you live in the world. I work with guys from Philippines, from Bangladesh, from India, from Vietnam, from South Africa. I really don't care where you're from. I care where your heart is. If you
mhm.
come and your heart is closed and you just want to do things your way and you just want to find a way to profit off of others and you're not going to be honest and vulnerable and have patience and empathy, then it's not going to work out. I'm going to call you out. You're going to get defensive. It's just not going to work out. But with the guys who like come with an open heart and that want to challenge me as well to be a better man, to be more loving, to be a better leader, right? That's where like the magic happens. And you've seen that with Garrett, with Neil, with Chaitanya, with Zion. We've got a new guy, Jeff. The list goes on and on. The guys that jump into this community and show up and just want to support each other, want to grow together, they feel like they stepped into a container that maybe they paid a few $1,000s for, but it was actually worth much more. And so it's very empowering. People call me a business coach, brand consultant, but really what do I do is I empower other leaders to speak their truth and to get on stage and share their message with the world. And now I see you doing this on StreamYard. When we met, you didn't have a podcast. Getting on StreamYard, inviting your friends, inviting your new connections, and bringing mentees on, guys who are in wheelchairs and guys who are not, and chasing your dreams and creating a relationship that you love and improving your relationship with your children and your family. And it's fucking inspiring. So that's why I do what I do, because the people that I surround myself with they're my clients or my friends, and my friends are my clients. And together we create a brotherhood, we create a family, we create a community that lasts for a lifetime.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate having you, man. I'm going to wrap things up and I'll talk to you momentarily if you don't mind. So
Yeah, it's really an honor.
anybody in the go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
cut you off.
it's just final thing. It's really an honor to be on your space, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to interview me and to hear more about my story and show interest, and also to just be an inspiration for the world, John Pace. Like, you are a fighter, you're a champion, you're a leader, you're a lover, you're so much. And when I first heard that story of you having that traumatic experience, falling off the roof, getting back up, picking yourself up, literally, physically, and becoming a champion in your mind, in your body, in your life, the actor, the movie star, the everything, right? It's just like, if you can do it under your circumstances and someone's listening, why not you? Why not you?
Right.
Why can't you go after your dreams in life and live the life that you truly desire? I think anything is possible when you meet someone like yourself.
Absolutely. I'm thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Beyond words, really. So I'll holler at you here momentarily and we'll wrap it up. So, well, I appreciate you guys for watching today. This has been Rolling to Win live with Dave Gold of Dave Gold Evolve. His Calendly is in the description. Reach out to Dave. It's a win-win. He just wants to hear your story, just like I want to get your story out there too. So be sure to subscribe, like, comment, share, etc. If anything you need, reach out. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Other than that, thank you for your time. We'll see you next. Keep rolling to win.